This segment is brought to you courtesy of Caribbean American Weekly, a newspaper owned and operated by Caribbean Americans. Read the latest edition at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. To like us on Facebook, to advertise or to subscribe, visit us at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. To advertise with the Caribbean American Weekly publication for freelance assignments to distribute at your business place, visit us at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. Or to meet a marketing representative at our office, call 718-771-0988. That's 718-771-0988. President Joe Biden on Sunday, January the 19th, posthumously pardoned Black nationalist, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who was convicted of mail fraud in the 1920s. Joining us today is Dr. Julius Garvey, son of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Welcome, sir. Such a pleasure and honor to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me on your program.
You're very welcome. So, Dr. Garvey, what was your immediate reaction when you learned that President Joe Biden had pardoned your father? How did it feel to see his recognition after so many years?
It was a very pleasant feeling, not really a surprise in that sense, in that we've been working for it for a very long time. But it's indeed a pleasure because, you know, the posthumous pardon is very special. It's only been used 4 times previously in the United States. And it's an indication that, you know, the president, which is the highest office in the land, is trying to correct an injustice that has been committed and to clear the name of the person posthumously. So we were very pleased that Joe Biden decided to do this just about the last day of his presidency, but we're happy with that.
Yes, it's been a long, long time coming, and I know you all worked very hard for this.
True.
So your father's work as a Black nationalist had a profound influence on figures like Malcolm X and other civil rights leaders. How do you think this pardon will impact the legacy of the Honorable Marcus Garvey and his vision for Black empowerment?
Yeah, well, you know, his vision, shall we say, and his work was more than just in the United States. It was worldwide, in that, as you know, obviously he was from Jamaica. His concern was about colonialism as well as about the apartheid system here in the United States, where there was segregation, etc. So I would call him an anti-colonial champion, as well as you could describe him as a Black nationalist, or if you prefer, a civil rights activist here in the United States. I think what this does is it helps to clear his name. Because, as we mentioned, he was convicted of mail fraud, and the trial itself was a bogus trial. There was no evidence. It was an empty envelope. Perjury was committed by the main witness, and he was coached by the prosecuting attorney. So all this is being recognized as, Calvin Coolidge back in 1927, after my dad spent more than 2 years in jail, commuted the sentence on the advice of his own attorney general, saying that something was wrong with the trial. So it's an accumulative evidence that, there was the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover was, trying to, shall we say, discredit the advancement of Black people, if you will, African Americans specifically. And this was one of the first instances of J. Edgar Hoover using the FBI to infiltrate an organization such as the Universal Negro Improvement Association. This continued later on with Malcolm X, with Martin Luther King, and others. So this begins to change the narrative, shall we say, so that when you speak of Marcus Garvey now, you can say that, there's recognition from the highest, shall we say, person or executive in the land that an injustice was committed. So it uncovers, shall we say, the work of Marcus Garvey without any stain on it. So we're very pleased with that. As the teachings of Marcus Garvey have not been put forward in many of our schools, etc. Hopefully this will be a stimulus, for that, particularly in Jamaica, throughout the Caribbean, but here as well in the United States. So, we look forward to these types of changes in the near future.
So, Dr. Garvey, we spoke earlier about, the campaign to secure this pardon going on for many years. And obviously, there were several leaders and organizations advocating for it. Can you share the emotions you experienced throughout this long journey to get justice for your father?
Yes, well, as I said, we're very pleased about it, and it's important to understand that basically, personally, we were involved from, say, 1987, which was the centennial of my father's birth. But we appeared before the House Judiciary Committee, which was an aspect of the Congress of the United States, and gave evidence. But, people, such as John Henry Clark, Tony Martin, and others gave evidence. Judith Stein gave evidence, to Marcus Garvey's contribution to the civil rights movement here in the United States. That was going through the Congress, and it's important to understand the difference. And that was part of House resolutions to exonerate Marcus Garvey. So the exoneration process started from 1987 and continues because Yvette Clarke still has a House resolution in the Congress to exonerate Marcus Garvey. And Yvette Clarke is a Democrat representative from Brooklyn. Her parents are Jamaican, etc. But that aspect of clearing his name is still continuing. So there's a posthumous pardon, which has been accomplished. We were on that trail since 2016 when we made the same petition to President Obama. This was the end of his second term, but he did not allow the posthumous pardon for whatever reason. We can't go into his reasons. He's the only one that knows his reasons. But this was now reapplied to President Biden, and he granted it. So the posthumous pardon is separate from the exoneration process.
Yes, I did speak with Congresswoman Clark, and she mentioned that the work is continuing to get the exoneration.
Absolutely.
Yes. So now that this historic pardon has been granted, what do you see as the next step for continuing the work your father started? And how can we build on his message of self-determination and Pan-Africanism in today's world?
Right. Well, as we were just mentioning, the approach through the Congress will continue for its exoneration. But I think it's important for us to continue the principles of Marcus Garvey, which you spoke about self-determination. That's certainly one of the principles. Self-knowledge is the most important principle for us to know, number one, who our ancestors were in terms of the first people in the world, the first civilizations in the world, and the greatest civilizations in the world, meaning that Kemet, which is Egypt, which of course is African, lasted for more than 3,000 years, which is no other civilization has done this, and gave the world, all the principles relative to ethics and righteous living, and an understanding of the relationship between the human being and our divine creator, as well as nature itself. So the world, owes us these principles in terms of the first expression of them. Before the Greeks, before the Romans, and before any other group of people. So it's important for us to recognize this. It's important for us to teach this to our young people in schools, and it's important, for us to develop a paradigm that is different, from the extractive, capitalistic paradigm and I would say pseudo democracy that we see, because we don't really have democracy in most of the of European countries that still dominate us as an African people, whether we're in the Caribbean or on the continent. It's very much an imperialist type of approach, extractive of resources. And we see that, in terms of globalization, the rich are getting richer and the middle class is getting poorer. And of course, there are more and more poor people. There's a fantastic inequity in terms of wealth distribution universally. And this has to change. But it can only change when people, come together and unify around a common agenda that will not be exploited anymore, but we'll use our own resources for our own benefit. So this is one of the principles of Marcus Garvey in terms of self-development and self-determination. And of course, I can quote him as Bob Marley: "We must liberate our minds from mental slavery," because we think because of what has happened over the last 500 years, that the European approach is the only approach. But we have to go back to our history and see that we've had other approaches that have been successful on the continent of Africa as well as elsewhere. And this is where we have to go in the future, because, the shall we say, both the political process and the economic and financial process has to be egalitarian. We have to recognize that, we're all brothers and sisters, so to speak, and needless to say, whatever the riches are, they need to be shared, so that we don't have this great inequity, and that has to be changed in the very near future, and hopefully that's happening now as we move towards a multipolar world, as opposed to a world that is really hegemonically dominated by the United States and Europe.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Julius Garvey, son of the great, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
This segment was brought to you courtesy of Caribbean American Weekly, a newspaper owned and operated by Caribbean Americans. Read the latest edition at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. To like us on Facebook, to advertise, or to subscribe, visit us at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. To advertise with the Caribbean American Weekly publication for freelance assignments to distribute at your business place, visit us at www.cawnyc.com. That's www.cawnyc.com. Or to meet a marketing representative at our office, call 718-771-0988. That's 718-771-0988.